What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the A24 Archive. This is the segment on my channel where I go back through A24's entire catalog from the first film that they released all the way to whenever I get current. And as I said, I'm really having a lot of fun with this series. It's been a blast revisiting some films I really love and watching some new films that I've never seen before. And today's film that I'm going to be discussing, I hadn't even heard of this movie before. I never saw a trailer for this movie. I didn't even know it existed, which can be either a good or a bad thing, depending on how the film turns out. Sometimes I've watched movies in this series so far that I'd never heard of, that I wish I never would have heard of. I went into this with a completely open mind. The reviews are kind of all over the place for this movie. There's some really negative reviews and some really positive reviews. And whenever you get into a film like that, you kind of just wonder how it's going to pay off. And I was excited to go into this one and check it out. And the movie I'm going to be discussing today is The Lovers. The Lovers is directed by Azazel Jacobs. The separation of a long married couple goes awry when they fall in love with each other again. So, as I said, I went into this movie with a completely open mind, did not know anything about it. I hadn't even seen a trailer for this movie before I watched it. I read a couple Letterboxd reviews beforehand just to kind of see where the general consensus was for this film, and it was a little bit all over the place. And I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I do not think that it is perfect, but I think that it's really effective in what it's trying to accomplish. And although I think that it gets off to a bit of a rocky start, once it settles in and you're with these characters for a while, I think the intentionality of what the director is going for really starts to pay off, and I think it makes the film successful in the end. And I'm excited to break it down for you a little bit today. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Mary, played by Debra Winger, and Michael, played by Tracy Letts, and the two of them are a married couple. And in the very first scene in the movie, the two are with the people that they are currently having affairs with. Both members of the marriage are currently having an affair, and we don't get to know a whole lot about the people that they're having an affair with other than brief conversations and seeing what they do for work. You really only get just the amount of information that you need to know. And when the two of them finally meet at home, you can tell there's a very distinct separation between the two of them. They don't really talk a whole lot. They just kind of live in a space together. They only communicate as much as they have to. They both leave the house after work consistently, and none of them really ask any questions about it. And their son is supposed to come visit with his girlfriend from college sometime very soon. And so amidst that coming back up, the two of them one night get in bed together after, not really talking to each other for a while, and they wake up the next morning and look at each other, and there's just this spark that kind of reignites in the two of them. And over a series of days, while they're with the partners that they're having an affair with, they're constantly wanting to be together, and they're constantly wanting to spend time together. And the film is conveying their relationship, kind of bringing this spark back and really wanting to be back together after their relationship has become stagnant over a period of time. And the entire film is us as an audience watching their relationship either grow again or will it eventually fall apart. So as I said, I really enjoyed this movie, and I think a big part of that is due to the two fantastic lead performances. Debra Winger and Tracy Letts both do a phenomenal job in this movie. And the reason they do a phenomenal job is something I talk about a lot in my reviews. So much more about these two actors' performances in this film are through facial expressions and bodily movements than dialogue. There is so many moments in this film with no dialogue whatsoever, where the camera is on a character either just sitting in a space thinking, looking at their partner, looking at the person they're having an affair with. You can get so much out of just reading these characters' facial expressions, and I was really impressed by that. I think it's so much more impressive to me as an audience member when a director can get so much out of their actors without them even speaking. And that happens a lot in this movie. There are so many moments of just quiet nuance that build on the characters and their motivations, and that's something I can really appreciate. I like that, there's a couple blow-up moments in this, but so many times when you watch movies about divorce, there's these really hokey, unrealistic blow-ups that feel very very Hollywood scripted. They don't feel natural. Everything that happens in this movie feels very natural. And as someone who watched my parents go through a very difficult divorce that was very rough and was not pleasant to be around, it felt very much real. It felt like things that you would go through once the child is put into the situation and finds out what is going on. Their reaction as well felt very realistic, and it felt very grounded. And it also lets you as the viewer look into this relationship and see, like, yes, both of these people have grown apart for a very long period of time, but how much is their growing apart the lack of communication? They're not even talking to each other about the fact that they're falling out of love, essentially. They're just kind of doing it. And it's so interesting to me because we live in a society that is so gung-ho on people getting married, and like marriage is such a big thing in our culture. It has been for a very long time. But what I find so interesting is how high the divorce rate is in the United States, and how many people really don't think about it before they get married and they rush into it, or like circumstances because they have kids, they feel like they have to get into it. And so many marriages fall apart because people don't talk to each other. And I think this movie does a really great job showing two people who could resolve a lot of their issues if they would communicate with each other. And that communication is just stripped away. I also like that it doesn't vilify either one of them. Like, you know what they're doing isn't right. They're hiding something behind their spouse's back. But at the same time, you understand, like, they both don't want to necessarily let the other one down, and they don't want to hurt the other person, because that glimmer of love for that person is still there. And I think whenever you talk about divorce or you talk about long-term relationships, there's a lot of complexity that is involved in those things. And what I liked about how Azazel Jacobs approaches this movie is how much of that is conveyed not necessarily through exposition, but just through the way characters react to specific things, and their bodily movements, and just decisions that they make throughout the film that kind of represent where they are in the relationship at that time period. And that was what I really loved so much about this movie, is the quiet nuance in it. I saw a couple people compare this to Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story, and I can understand that. No, Marriage Story is definitely a stronger film than this, in my opinion. I think that it utilizes its runtime a little bit better. There's some moments throughout this film that feel a little too bloated that I think could have been condensed, but I do think that when the movie works, it works really well, and that's what I appreciated so much. And I'm actually kind of surprised that this movie is not discussed more in the scope of A24. It's not my favorite film in their catalog by any means, but it's a really good movie that I think is slept on quite a bit. And if you've never seen The Lovers before, it is streaming free on Tubi right now, and it's definitely 100% worth checking out. I thought it was really entertaining. So have you seen The Lovers? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was really well made. Despite some of the qualms that I have with it, it's still really effective, and I think it accomplishes exactly what it sets out to do. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.